Chapter 29, Till I Collapse. It was fast, way too fast. But Celaya could feel everything in that short span of time. The boy had been slammed against Dravan's barrier, completely cornered. She dashed in with a straight thrust, ready to end the fight by stabbing his heart. There was nowhere for him to run. Based on her calculations, that repulsion barrier of his would only return after exactly 1 second, but she'd need less than 0.05 seconds to pierce the skin, and around 0.3 seconds to reach his heart. More than enough time to finish it before that defense kicked in again. It's over. First the skin was pierced, THSSK. But then, absolute rejection, the moment Kane's skin was pierced, something invisible tore through the air. A silent wave rippled through the space around him. The world seemed to freeze for both of them. Everything moved in slow motion. Celaya felt it first, her blade trembled violently, almost like it was screaming. The pressure surged from the blade to the hilt, then climbed her arm like a sharp, icy shiver that stabbed deep into her flesh and bones. The impact came before the sound. Her body was yanked backward with brutal force, like an invisible wall had formed and thrown her with zero mercy. Only then, a second later, came the sound. Boom! The vector explosion blasted the area. The pressure tore through the ground, nearby trees shook, and leaves were launched like a sudden storm had exploded into existence. Celaya was literally thrown. Her body spun uncontrollably through the air like a ragdoll caught in a violent gust. She slammed into the ground several meters away with a dry thud and rolled a bit more before finally stopping. NGHHK. As Celaya coughed and started to get up, Kane didn't waste a second. He quickly channeled energy into his right hand. A distorted sphere of vector force began to form, like the air itself was being squeezed. VOOM, he launched the attack at Celaya without hesitation. Dravan, seeing Celaya still vulnerable, clenched his teeth. With a snap, the magic barrier behind Kane vanished. In the same instant, he raised a new barrier in front of Celaya. The sphere hit it hard, sending cracks all over the magical structure, but not fully breaking it. At that moment, Kane focused energy into his feet. His eyes locked onto a point above the trees. 2. The repulsion blast under his feet launched him into the air with force. Not high enough to vanish into the sky, but enough to break through the tree canopy and disappear from view for a few seconds. Dravan froze for a moment, watching the boy vanish. That bastard can jump that far? Celaya got up angrily, brushing dust from her face and clothes. Arg! What an annoying little brat. She kicked a nearby stone, sending it ricocheting off a tree. What the hell kind of magic is that? Celaya, should we go after him? She took a deep breath, and the rage on her face slowly faded, like it had never been there. Ha! Let him go. We need to fall back. But what about Half-Mask? TSK. Nothing we can do now. That damn academy probably already sent magic knights into the forest. Let's retreat. He'll get the message. She turned and started walking toward the direction Velcro had been thrown. Let's just grab Velcro and get out, alright. Next time we run into that kid. I really am going to kill him, Elena sighed as she looked around, restless. Like she was searching for something, or someone. Her sharp gaze, the way she held her head up, she looked like a sentinel waiting for a silent return. You okay, Elena? HMN? Raiden walked over with a bottle of juice in his hands, offering one to Elena. Yeah. I was just distracted. In truth, she just wanted to make sure Yen's group would return safely. Otherwise, her entire plan would have failed. She knew the first major issue in the magical world would begin with Yen's capture. The magic tower would have to abandon entire research lines to try and save her. Raiden frowned slightly, his voice still calm. You sure? You've been kinda tense since that mage vanished. I said it's nothing. Alright, she still wasn't comfortable with Raiden constantly trying to be nice to her. Of course, it was admirable, the kind of thing you'd expect from a noble of a great family. But it wasn't the kind of attention she was looking for. Well, at least he brought me a drink. She thought that, if it were Kane, he probably would have asked her to buy the drinks and bring some snacks too. She finally opened the bottle and took a sip. "This is awful, sorry." "I thought you'd like it." She was sitting on the ground, leaning against a stone wall. The dust from the battle had already settled. The dark mages had retreated some time ago, and the Vehard knights were combing the area, searching for traces or traps left behind. Some had spread out into the forest, looking for any injured or missing students. "Let's just wait." That's when an excited voice broke through the air. "Elena, hey! Elena!" Elena let out a long sigh. Is she seriously treating this like some kind of game? Lyra came running, waving enthusiastically as she called out. She finally got closer. "Some professors came with them too." "The professors?" "Yeah. Erin said she's gonna kill every dark mage she finds." She spun dramatically and struck a pose, pointing to the sky. "Like this. You there, you're dead." Bam! Elena put a hand to her face, clearly embarrassed, but couldn't hold back a muffled laugh. "You're a noble's worst nightmare, huh?" "What do you mean?" "Well, if it's Erin, that actually doesn't sound impossible." Elena was still quietly laughing at Lyra's little act. But then, something in the distance caught her attention. Her eyes widened suddenly, the smile disappearing in an instant. Marco and Yen were arriving. She stood up immediately, quickly walking toward them, her eyes locked on the two, trying to figure out the situation before anyone said a word. "They just got here? Only the two of them?" Both were out of breath, their clothes torn and dusty. They looked like they had just escaped a fight. Marco and Yen only noticed her when she was close enough to speak. "Hey! Where's Kane?" Yen slowly lifted her head at the voice. Her gaze met Elena's for a brief second before turning away, clearly uncomfortable. She clicked her tongue, annoyed. "TCH. That idiot." Marco took a deep breath and stepped forward. "We ended up getting surrounded by dark mages. Kane stayed behind to hold them off." "What? Alone? Is he insane?" Lyra jumped in, unable to hold back her shock. "We already told the Magic Knights. They said they're going to start searching." Elena pressed her lips tight, trying to keep herself calm as the anxiety grew inside. "Shit, he really is she wanted to curse him out, blame him for being such an idiot. But, was it really his fault? The only person who actually knew what was going on and why, was her. The truth was, Kane was dealing with problems that were never meant to be his. Now we just have to wait." Raiden, even if he wasn't the type to get involved, noticed the tension. He could see the connection between Kane and Elena. It was impossible to ignore. Even if she never said a word, he still knew something was going on between them. "Which direction did you come from?" A voice cut through the moment like a precise blade. It wasn't cold, but it had a firm tone, young and almost mocking. Everyone turned instantly. Erin hovered slightly above the ground, her golden eyes glowing with calm intensity. Her dark hair and robe swayed gently with the energy in the air. "We came from the Fwoosh." Before Marco could finish, Erin shot off like a rocket in the direction he pointed. "That kid is seriously stupid. I just hope I'm not too late." Kane tried to land softly, using counter vectors to nearly cancel out his weight. Damn it. Instead of a smooth landing, his body came down at the wrong angle and he crashed sideways. Thram! He lay on the ground for a few seconds, arms spread, legs awkwardly in the air like he'd been tossed by a giant. Huff, shit, the scene would have been funny if his body wasn't screaming in pain. He slowly started getting up, brushing dust from his hair while every inch of his body throbbed. "She really wanted to kill me, HNNNGH. For a moment, his vision blurred. A painful pulse hit his chest, then spread across his entire body. Fuck. Maybe I shouldn't have used absolute rejection, that psycho bitch. The pain wasn't just from effort. Right after using absolute rejection, some of the energy that hadn't been fully released had bounced back against his body. Dravan's barrier behind him stopped the repulsion from dispersing. The impact reverberated internally, making the energy slam back into him like a wave violently returning to its source. Luckily, he managed to control his energy at the last second, or he would have been thrown right into Salaya's sword. If I had more mana, I would have shattered that shitty barrier. Guess I need to use this better next time. Cain was breathing heavily, dragging his body step by step toward the transmutation garden. Blood had trickled down, mixing with the dust and dampness, but he didn't care. He barely noticed anything around him. Everything hurt. Did I just get lucky? A lot of what happened had been calculated. He'd absorbed mana until he overflowed, making his inertia core pulse like it was alive. The effects weren't just sharper senses. But yeah, tricking the dark mages? That part might have been pure luck. Any mage who saw him right after he completely filled his inertia core to the brim would have thought, at the very least, that Cain was someone at the end of Class 3. The dense aura and absurd mana pulses could fool even the most experienced eyes. It made the enemy mages hesitate. And in that short window, he took down Velcro. But I just hope Yen doesn't hate me. He'd called them deadweight, practically forcing them to leave him behind. Marco, not so much. But Yen might have taken that personally. But he hadn't had a choice. It would have been completely impossible for the three of them to escape together. And even being the fastest, he almost didn't make it. The jump he used to escape Salaya nearly broke his feet. He let out a low groan as he moved his arms. Now I just need to find those two Crowwump. A dry, heavy impact echoed through the trees. Cain turned immediately, instinctively shifting into a defensive stance, even with pain shooting through his whole body. His vision was still blurry, but it was enough to see the figure emerging from the dust. A tall man, messy green hair, and a broken mask covering part of his face. The exposed side revealed a sharp gaze filled with contained rage. The mage stared at him in silence. On his arm perched a black crow with glowing violet eyes. A boy with white hair and red eyes. As soon as he finished speaking, the crow dissolved into black particles, like corrupted mana smoke vanishing into the air. I completely forgot about that. The half-masked mage also had tracking abilities, just like Salaya. He used magical crows to follow targets over long distances. They really brought in the best to find Yen. Where are the mages you were fighting? This is bad. Cain's eyes burned. The pain in his body pulsed with each heartbeat. Even so, his mouth opened slightly. They gave me a free pass, so the air around them turned heavy. Cain felt a chill run down his spine. The mage cut him off with a dark, heavy glare. The mission to capture the girl from the magic tower might have failed, but at least, I'll kill you before I go. The corrupted mana around his body rose like living tentacles, pulsing and twitching in chaotic rhythm. I take back what I said about being lucky. Chapter 30: Immediate Impact. Erin flew at high speed through the sky, slicing the air like an enchanted bolt. Her clothes flapped in the wind, and the magical aura around her body left a faint trail of amber light behind. While Veyhart's magic night spread across the academy's outer grounds, sweeping the forest and ravines in search of missing students or possible intruders, Erin zipped past them like a conscious arrow. She wasn't just flying over. She was scanning. Every strand of mana felt like it had to report to her. Her refined flight technique, combined with heightened magical perception, made her one of the best mages in the academy for both tracking and aerial combat. The only problem? She just couldn't find who she was looking for. You idiot, where the hell did you go? She bit her lower lip hard, her brow furrowed. How did things get to this point? It had all happened way too fast. And of course, right when both the headmaster and deputy were gone. To her, there was no doubt. Someone had helped those dark mages get into Veyhart territory. And when she found out who it was, the aura around her flickered, unstable. Her anger made the mana spark in golden flashes, dense and sharp like blades ready to tear loose. She wasn't going to wait for judgment. Not from the headmaster. Not from anyone. I'll kill any rat I find playing these games, but then, A slight fluctuation in mana sliced through the air, interrupting her thoughts. almost unnoticeable to any regular mage. But not to her. Her eyes narrowed instantly. Her body tilted sideways as she slowed down with perfect control, hovering in the sky like an enchanted feather. She spun slightly mid-air, locking onto the exact direction of the magical disturbance. Found you. And in the blink of an eye, she shot forward like a living arrow toward the source of the signal. She wasn't certain yet, but it had to be there. It has to be here. Kane was flying backward, his body crashing through tree branches like a projectile with no control. The magical explosion had launched him far, and he only stopped when his back slammed into a thick trunk. Crack! The impact made leaves rain down all around, and he hit the ground gasping. Cough! Ha! KHH! Kane started coughing hard, trying to pull in air that seemed to have fled his lungs. Every breath came with pain, like his insides were being squeezed. HHNNG. That bastard, he didn't know if he should laugh at his luck or cry because of the pain still pulsing in his chest. He had just barely escaped 2 insane dark mages alive, only to run straight into another one here to finish him off. Where the hell did he go? He managed to repel part of the blast, but it was far from a perfect defense. When he tried to stand up, his muscles and bones screamed. It was like his body was begging him to stay on the ground. Pretty sure. I broke something. While catching his breath, Kane noticed a shadow descending from above. The masked mage landed nearby, touching down lightly. Told you already, running is impossible. I'm not running. Let's just finish this. No last words? Voom. Dozens of black needles ripped through the air toward Kane, infused with corrupted mana. They glowed a deep violet, buzzing aggressively like they were made of pure hatred. He's really not gonna give me a second? Kane forced himself upright, ignoring the pain pounding in every inch of his body. TSSHHH. The needles struck behind the tree where Kane had been, and in the very next instant, boom! Fragments of bark, purple smoke, and twisted energy burst in all directions, leaving a scorched hole in the trunk. What do I do? Kane was only still alive because he'd managed to buy time, dodging through the trees using his repulsion vectors. But that wouldn't last much longer. His mana was almost completely gone. The masked mage walked calmly, like he was sure Kane would die soon. No point trying to run, let's stop playing and get this over with. Kane had hidden behind one of the trees after the explosion. His body trembled lightly from pain, sweat dripping from his forehead. Run? I'm already where I wanted to be. Sighing tiredly, his half-lidded eyes watched the mage approach with slow, almost lazy steps. Now I just need to distract this idiot. For Kane, this was almost humiliating. Someone like him, who used to terrorize players inside Kronos realms, now cornered with his life hanging by a thread. What he wanted to do was condense all the vectors in the universe into a microscopic point, and create the first vector atomic bomb in history. Blow up the mage, the forest, maybe half the continent. At least he'd go out on top. What the hell am I thinking? Kane shook his head, snapping back to reality. Escape was pretty much impossible. This was the kind of enemy who knew exactly where and how to kill. And Kane knew that, because he'd died to him countless times in Kronos realms. But he had an idea. One that could work if luck was on his side. And for someone with no other choice, taking a gamble was better than nothing. At first I thought it was just some random spell, but you seem to have control over repulsion, don't you? How do you even control it like that? Far as I know, there's no such thing for that kind of magic. Kane stood still, listening, or at least he thought he was. Then he looked back and his eyes widened. Shit, boom. The explosion came from behind. But Kane dove to the side with a desperate leap, rolling across the ground as the tree he'd been hiding behind blew up in a blast of black energy. Even while falling, Kane positioned his fingers like a sight, compressed the vector just slightly, and launched it with precision at the mage. Thump! The shot ripped through the air, gaining speed with gravity. The dark mage saw the attack and reacted at the last second, channeling mana into his hands. His barrier formed with a vivid purple glow, absorbing the impact with effort. The energy burst around the shield, and even so, it pushed him several meters back. Now that you've got your info, how about we both get on with our lives? Cain, right arm stretched out and the other supporting his weight, released a wide burst of repulsion. Whoosh! But it wasn't like his usual techniques. With his mana at the limit, all he managed to create was a dry, forceful gust of wind. The dark mage raised a hand to shield his eyes from the dust and wind. Just a breeze? That's all you've got. Next time I find you, I'm going to kill you. Cain's eyes burned so intensely red they looked like they were bleeding with fury. A chill ran up the dark mage's spine. It was strange, that boy wasn't fighting to survive. He was clearly deciding when it would be the right time to kill someone. Cain gathered the last scraps of mana in his feet, created countervectors, and launched himself into the air. I'm not letting you escape. The mage got ready to chase after him, activating his flight spell. But Cain, still mid-air, suddenly turned. His hands were already positioned, and an unstable sphere of energy trembled in his palm. Yeah, this one's gonna hurt. With no mana left in his inertia core, controlling the vector was impossible. The pain, the side effects, were expected. But he fired it anyway. 2. The repulsive explosion launched Cain even higher, like a cannon had gone off beneath his hands. His body shot upward fast, flung far from the mage, who was still trying to contain the vector energy that had crashed into him seconds earlier. Ugh, fuck. Cain flew through the air without control, wind blasting his face, his white hair flailing like strands of cotton cutting through the sky. He looked down and saw a large lake getting closer, the water reflecting the bright sky. At least I won't die from the fall, but before he could finish the thought, his consciousness began to fade. Actually, probably the water. His eyes started to close slowly, until everything went black. At the same time. Aaron felt the energy rising by the second, slicing through the sky like invisible pressure. But something was wrong. That wasn't the same energy she'd sensed earlier while scanning the other areas. It wasn't the dense, steady mana she'd felt around Cain. This was something else. It felt dirty. Filthy mana pulsing in sync with twisted intentions. Aaron clenched her fists, golden sparks flashing in her eyes as the wind around her grew unstable. Let's not be pessimistic, Aaron. But rage kept building in her chest with every meter she flew. As she got closer, her eyes finally caught a silhouette in the air. Floating midair was a mage. He wore a broken mask and held a tense stance, like he had just come out of a fight. Aaron didn't say a word. She just raised her hand, and a blade of light formed in the air. It was pure mana, condensed into a razor-sharp celestial line. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't refined. It was made to kill. I'll cut off the parts of your body to interrogate you, and after that, you're dead. The masked mage turned the instant Aaron launched her attack. Let's start with the legs. Sa-ak. A burst of light ripped through the air and tore across the space between them, flying straight at the masked mage. He reacted at the last moment, tilting his body and dodging with a fast burst of movement. The blade grazed him, or at least, it seemed like it. Then, a dry snap echoed in the air. Chack! The dark mage's left arm was severed, flying through the air before landing with a dull thud among the trees below. Blood sprayed across the sky in a grotesque arc, falling in thick, hot drops that splashed through the leaves. The mage pulled back midair, breathing heavily, gritting his teeth while clutching his bleeding shoulder. You managed to dodge that? Let's try again. The light blade, which had continued in a straight line, curved in the air as if it were alive. It returned to Aaron like a boomerang, spinning at high speed before stopping above her hand again, hovering like it was waiting for a command. Even with all her rage, she did everything she could to hide her presence. But still, he noticed at the very last second. Aaron didn't need to ask. From the way he dodged, he had already been on full alert before even sensing her. That was close. I only noticed her when she was already attacking. The mage took a deep breath, still floating above her. Where is Cain? Cain? Was that supposed to be someone? The dark mage's eyes widened, and a crooked smile spread across his face, like he'd just figured out something amusing. Kane? So that was his name? The words hit her like a stone. In the same instant, her aura exploded. A wave of golden mana surged around her like a living storm. The trees below trembled, even without being touched. The air grew dense and suffocating. Actually, forget the interrogation part.